All right, Zig coming in on top today. We have an epic one. We have Miguel Happoldt. Mike is a singer, songwriter, musician, producer, mixing engineer, and label executive. Yeah, he does it all. And he's played in some of the most epic bands of all time, including Sublime and the Ziggens, as well as fronting Perro Bravo. And that's really only skimming the surface of everything Mike has done. Inspired by Dischord and the DIY punk movement, Mike started Skunk Records, with the first release being the Ziggens' first record. That first cassette is the cassette he would give to Brad Nowell from Sublime, and the rest is history, as they say. Mike would continue to work with Sublime and the Ziggens throughout his career. He would also work with the Long Beach Dub All-Stars, Volcano, Lucky Boys Confusion, Unwritten Law, Slightly Stupid, and the Long Beach Short Bus, just to name a few. Mike has been working on a massive project. It's the Ziggens' last record. The Ziggens, well qualified to represent the LBC Volumes 1 and 2, spelled SEA. Bert Szanka, who is a singer, songwriter, and guitarist and fronted the band The Ziggens, passed away a year ago from ALS. And before he did that, he did a surf project with his son, Paul Szanka. He recorded all these surf melodies. Him and Paul mapped it out and then gave all the recordings to Mike. And then Mike and the rest of the Ziggens brought Bert's vision to fruition. It's a massive undertaking to take one of your dear friends' last works and see it to the quality that you would want it to be at, and you would want it to be at for them. Endless hours of trying to bring your friend's vision to life. It's an emotionally arduous feat. And the amount of work as well was arduous because it was like 24 songs. But Mike and the Ziggens, which is John, Brad, and Dickie, pull it off because this is a surf masterpiece. I can't recommend this record enough. It's honestly what I've been spinning over the last chunk of the summer here. If you go to the Skunk Records and Ziggens Instagram, Facebook, and website, you can get this really sick vinyl cut of the album, and it's incredible. The vinyl itself is it looks like a beach wave washing the shore. It's incredible. I'm super appreciative of Mike for his time and insight. A few years ago, when the Ziggens put out their last record, I was talking with Bert, and I had an interview lined up with Bert. And we were supposed to do a regular podcast interview to promote that record, but the day we were supposed to do it, he got COVID really bad, and we ended up going back and forth, and by the time we got to actually be able to do one, Bert's ALS was too severe, and he couldn't talk anymore, and I did not know how to even respond to that, so I reached out to the person I always reach out to, Hope, and she was like, well, why don't you see if he'd be interested in a written interview? So I pitched it to Bert, and I typed up some questions, and he was really into it and seemed to be genuinely moved by it. It was a very special experience for me to be able to pick the mind of one of my heroes in a way I've never done before. And so I've been working on this project. I have this wonderful interview from Bert, and I didn't want to just put it out there as a zine or a blog. I wanted to do something more with it. And during this time, I was reading a lot of American Splendor, and kind of was looking at the art, and before I got into music, I was doing art, and I kind of came to the realization that I might be able to do something with it. So I've spent the last year learning how to become a better artist, and have been adapting the interview into a graphic novel. It's been a huge undertaking, and has been a lot of work, and it's finally getting to the point where it's getting full, and I don't know, it ended up being Bert's last interview, and I really wanted to make it special, and I really wanted to do my absolute best to celebrate what an amazing person and musician Bert was, with the brief encounter through text I had. The book is going to feature the interview I did with Bert, as well as some bits from the interview you're about to hear with Mike, and some other stuff throughout other episodes of the podcast, and hopefully some other members from the Ziggens and so forth. Anywho, this is the first I've brought it up to anyone, especially on the show, but this interview dives deep into Ziggens lore, and then gets more into Mike's career and some of the other insights he's got from working with Brad and Bert. It's an incredibly insightful interview, and I'm excited to share it with you. Before we get to that, if you hear anything you like, if you could like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like Mike. I also want to plug, before we get into it, the supergroup Volcano, which was composed of Kurt from the Meat Puppets, Bud from Sublime, John from the Ziggens, also features Mike, recorded this incredible record that never got released and now is released. There's a vinyl release and then there's a digital release. If you go to Skunk Records Instagram, website, and Facebook, as well as the Ziggens, you can find information on it there. They also have, you can also get merch at the Don Giovanni web store for Volcano and check out this epic supergroup. And don't forget to check out the Ziggens' last record, well qualified to represent the LBC Volumes 1 and 2. And now, without further ado, I'm super excited to share this amazing interview I had with the one and only Miguel Happoldt. Check it. So the kind of like get into it, I kind of wanted to jump into your history a little bit until it gets to the Ziggens and kind of dive into.
Yeah, I mean, there's, it's not much to tell. The Ziggens is definitely the beginning, meeting John Poutney as far as my music career goes. Pretty normal upbringing, into music, radio, heavy metal. As a teenager, played guitar. Super into that. That was my main thing. And then I got a 4-track. And then I wanted to go to college to learn to record. So I ended up at Cal State Dominguez Hills in their recording program. And the first dude I met in the first morning was John Poutney, bass player of the Ziggens.
Leading up to that, though, what type of metal bands were you into?
Maiden.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that technical stuff that makes you like kind of want to like know more about it. Like when I first started getting into music, I was kind of like trying to figure out like Hendrix and stuff, and it was all it's technical in a different way, but like it took me, I ended up studying theory on my own, then going to college for music as well. But it kind of like those steps towards it, like almost like you don't want to dissipate the magic by knowing too much, but at the same time you can do so much more if you know stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, Hendrix, of course, he was that's number one, but he wasn't around.
Yeah.
Think about Maiden and Rush, you could go see him.
That's true.
And that was critical because you go and see Alex Lifeson play a solo or a riff, and you could see where he was on the neck, and that was it. And when you went home, dude, you had no excuse not to figure it out as long as you knew where the fuck they were on the neck. This is before tablature and all that shit.
Well, for sure. Like, just to like hear certain things, like on guitar, it's such a feel-based thing. You can make it work. Like, you can make any riff kind of work anywhere if you work at it hard enough in a spot of the neck. But like how you're saying, to actually see like Spirit of Radio, like that intro, he's using open strings, you know what I mean? Like it's a game changer.
You drive yourself crazy trying to figure it out somehow. But that's like the solo I did for what I got, the official tablature. When you go online, all this, they're not in the right place. They never asked me.
Where is it? Because man, that solo has been like
it's up at the 10th fret in the D position.
Okay.
He starts on the D string. It's a thicker, and then you don't have to move your hand. Everything is in one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Stuff, and it's finger style in the style of the great Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. It was another big influence.
So you were really diving into like, I mean, that's another one too. Like if you didn't like see it in a way, like, I mean, I guess you can kind of hear the finger stuff going on, but with but definitely seeing that would illustrate that for sure.
Well, we couldn't find a pick in the house.
Yeah.
So we were real rudimentary operation Sublime until we got signed. We made the first 2 records without a tuner.
Damn.
You know what I mean? Like so that's why they're a little off when you go to play to him, because Eric would take his bass out of the case, tune it, and then Brad would tune to him, and then we'd track. That was it. We didn't use a lot of keyboards, so if there's keyboards on the track, luckily we could tune to the keyboard. Well, there's not a lot of keyboards. So.
I mean, did you find like kind of adding stuff like to tracks like that tuning was that big an issue, or was it?
Well, you had a technique that was called a tuning tone, where you would just hit an E string at the top of the tape.
Okay.
And then you just tune everything to that. But we didn't do a lot of overdubs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
The vocal, well, Brad just has this innate ability to sing perfectly in tune, whether it was a little sharp or flat to true concert pitch. Didn't matter then.
I think that, that's something for like, I mean, a lot of music now is very like to a grid and to a pitch. And like, I think that's what makes like Sublime and like most of the projects you've done like so potent and like relatable in that sense, is because they're not to a grid. You're hearing actual people doing an actual take.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's still some great bands out there.
For sure.
Yeah, that shit can save your ass though. I mean, this new Ziggens record, I don't know if you had a chance to check it out, but Bert was suffering from ALS, and so he lost the ability to sing. And he just didn't have a lot of energy. He had like a window during the day where he could get some things done, and so he was able to make the whole record to a click grid, just guitar.
Wow, and that's the surf record, right?
Yeah, we'd have been screwed without that. But with that, at least we could add all the drums and bass, to his ideas, and we were able to finish 24 songs that way. So it's not there's no really one way to do anything.
That's true. Yeah.
You kind of got to take the good with the bad, and the yellow and the purple. It's all part of it.
I think that's well said. And that's an incredible record. I listened to the first chunk of it and the single that came out yesterday.
Yeah.
And like,
the video.
Yeah. And it's incredible. 'Cause I remember like when I was getting ready to talk with Bert, like finding all these like he was working on a project like that, and also I don't know if it came to fruition, but he was working on like a vocal project too. Was this a thing that actually happened?
Well, I'm not sure how far. He did the last record he was able to sing properly on was called Oregon.
Yeah,
and that came out. That was great. And then sort of went kind of downhill from there as far as that goes. So. He did a comedy album, kind of trying to make light of his situation. But by the time he finished writing it, he couldn't really speak. So our buddy Z-Man from the Sublime movie did it for him. But that was really more for the family. I don't know. It's probably on, somewhere online, but it's not really official release. But pretty funny. I think just with a lot of bravery.
Yeah.
To be able to talk about something like that, he's a devout Christian, so facing death was he just didn't have fear like that because he was going to the Lord.
Yeah. And one thing I thought was amazing, like when I started talking with Bert a little bit, and just like on social media, he was always like advocating for other people, to pray for other people, And like, I was like, man, this guy's the real deal. What a like incredible, like with everything he's going through, what an incredible person to be thinking about other people in this situation. Right.
Well, he was sort of like that from the day I met him. But never preachy though.
Yeah.
He never, I went to Catholic school and everything. So my Bible skills and studies are strong. So I meet people all the time. I'm able, to talk the good book with him. He was pounded in my head, and so we kind of bonded on that because he was, studying it like as an adult. He wanted to learn, and he was like, all these stories. I know all that stuff. And so it was something we always kind of bonded on, and I don't know what to think. I just have a kind of myself. I don't know. I've never really been able to nail it down what I truly believe, but he was devout, no doubt about it in his mind. There's a strength in that, strength in anything, conviction. And I think he was just in the end, a really no nonsense guy. Like, as far as, he was a really funny dude and a good time. When it was time to write a record, he wrote a record. When it's time to do the guitar parts, do the guitar parts. And he's just real no nonsense about getting it done and writing songs. He wrote 100 songs before he showed one to anybody. He'd come home from work and write one while he was waiting for dinner. And it didn't matter how good or bad it was, he had to finish it. And he said, he wrote 100 crappy songs just to write one that somebody could hear, Interesting. I was like, yeah, does that mean I got to write 100 crappy songs just to write one? Like, yeah, maybe more.
I definitely think there's a thing in number. When was that, like when you first met Bert, or was this like later on?
This was when this is when it was like in high school.
Okay. So,
because I just asked him when I met him, he had songs. Because the Ziggens were a band. I wasn't the guitar player. They had a couple other guitar players before me. But we would hang out because I knew John Pountney, who was in the band. And then we'd go see them play, or brought them in to record, and we just hang out and drink beer. This is in 87, 88 at the dorms at Dominguez. And that's where Bert, he would play me songs on acoustic. We just play them. We just pass the guitar. But we would be playing like Elvis Costello or something. And he had his own song, which was like the first guy I ever met who had like his own songs that were good. Yeah, that was the first person I ever met like that.
And like, so going to school and it was for recording, right? It was for
in production.
Okay. And like meeting someone who's writing their own songs, and like is that what like kind of opened the door for yourself?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was going to do it either way, but it went, once I was in the band, it was like, well, let's make a record. And then no one was interested in the record, so it's like, well, let's just print it up. I'll start a label called Skunk Records, and we'll try to sell it, the tapes at the gigs, and get it in shows. And so everything was kind of hand in hand. So all of a sudden, I'm in the band, so it's like, let's make a record. Let's put it out ourselves, go play shows and see what happens. That's really it's really the same thing as somebody sitting in their bedroom putting it on YouTube. It's a little easier for people nowadays.
Yeah, that's definitely the beauty of it, is if you can do it, there is opportunity to do it, an outlet to do it. And the bar of that is way more accessible. But like, so you joined because Dickie stepped out, right? Or something, or he stopped?
Dickie was a couple years gone. He had his own band. He had some other guys, and it's too bad I can't remember their name right now. Might have to interview John Pountney. But so I joined fall of 88.
Okay.
But I had known them all 87. Because everything goes by like school, right? So I show up in this fall of 87, freshman. We're friends all through that time, and then by the time I come back, fall of 88 to start sophomore year, one of the first things Pountney said when I saw him was like, "Hey, we lost our guitar player. You wanna be in the band?" I'm like, and that's how it started. So I went and jammed with them. And interesting, it's the first day I went to jam practice with those guys. They had their practice room was next door to No Doubt, and they were friends. So I actually met No Doubt before Sublime. That's pretty weird. So I've known them even longer.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Like, so I mean, come from like a metal-ish background, like the Ziggens, like with like, I mean, I can see a correlation with like metal to like surf, but kind of jumping into like, what were they more
Right.
kind of, was it like surf and
Well, I
country
had my parents
chops?
were rock and rollers.
Okay.
So Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Rolling Stones. So good old rock and roll, classic rock. That was in my blood too, So it wasn't a big jump for the Ziggens. And once I got out to California, it was Suicidal Tendencies, and then alternative bands like the Minutemen had become this band Firehose, and then Jane's Addiction. So the world was sort of shifting, and then it wasn't long till Guns N' Roses comes, which is there you go. That's the epitome of classic rock and roll, punk rock, and metal all rolled into one. That's why they're Guns N' Roses. But it's not if you follow the lineage of what they're doing. Sped up AC/DC.
That's a good way to put it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Shit.
There you go. And AC/DC was a huge influence on punk rock because they weren't that far from it either. Here they come with the jeans, no effects, and fucking no makeup, nothing. Just kill you, pull you over. It's the songs and solos. So everything comes from somewhere. So no, it wasn't a big jump. It was gradual, but if you listen to the very first Ziggens record, I mean, I'm kind of overplaying all over it. It took a little while to get right with with what the parts deserve. But there again, we're 18, 20. And Perro was a little older. He was like 24 when we're doing this. I'm 18, so good start. It's definitely a good start. That's the tape that I handed Brad Nowell, and that was the one he responded to. Liked the songs, and he liked the guitar playing, and he liked that I had made a full record, and it had like flow, and he kind of caught all that, and he was like, "That's what I wanted." So that's how it started. So if I didn't have that, I don't know if a guy like Brad would have been that interested in this dude from Florida who he just met. He was a cool kid. Like he was he's a fucking big man on campus type guy. Very popular, and I was one.
I think it's like anytime I overplaying, I think we all do that when we first record as like guitar players. You know what I mean? Like there's so much you want to say and contribute, and like sometimes it's like learning to hold back, and like, but even still listening to that first record, I don't hear it as overplaying, but like, were there other tunes like, so that first record, when you first started playing and practicing with them, were those the tunes they were doing, or were there some that on the later records that you were also working on with the guy?
Yeah, some songs, that's how it is with bands. Some songs, they just don't fly in the studio. Maybe they'll fly later. But he had, Taiwan on, Tim the Dinosaur, Big Salty Tears. When I met him, he had Mississippi. He had Outside. But I added the riff, but he had it, and so pretty full formed as a singer and a songwriter, So I was pretty impressed, and that was Brad's thing. He was like, he's like, I'm like the only person really doing original music that's unique, and so he really, even though the music wasn't the same, he felt like the Ziggens and Sublime were on the same path, taking that big chance of doing original music that's super unique, not just a copy, So we did a session, and because then eventually I meet Brad, and we did a session at the studio, and it didn't go that good. But at the end of the night, I gave him the Ziggens tape, and he came over the next day, and he was like, that session we did wasn't very good, but this is good. Like how do we get my band more like this? You did this, and like you play guitar on this, like And then that just sort of started right there, because then as I sort of started hanging out with Brad, the Ziggens sort of broke up right there for a little while. We weren't really doing much. I mean, gigs were, there'd be like 10 people there, maybe. And then Bert got serious about his wife and his life, and just, that was it. So I eventually got corralled into Sublime.
With that, like, first session not going as good as, or not feeling as good, I mean, and like, it's really interesting too, because
it was live in the studio.
Oh, okay.
And so there was no way to fix anything. But it was a college, so the tape machine, it was all analog tape, and so they were always on the fritz, and so it was always a gamble. So I got them in there. Of course, the machine was broken, so rather than do nothing, we just jammed live-to-DAT, which worked, but you couldn't separate anything. It was just like a live mix and go. So, the mix was just, 19-year-old kid. It wasn't that good. But they played good. They were a great band. You could hear that. And one song made the cut. The song called Happoldt. It was on Secondhand Smoke.
Yeah.
We did we did 17, 18 songs. So they're in the vault. I don't know. Maybe they see the light one day. But yeah, so he was like, aside from that one song, we got to redo everything. So then that's what led us to doing, DJs, Bad Fish, real songs.
It was the difference just that it was like tracked, like multi-tracked?
Yeah, took our time. Yeah. Took our time, multi-track, just took our time with it.
And like from working with like the Ziggens first, like recording to like working with Sublimes, what was like, because did the Ziggens come in like really like prepared, I guess, as far as like where everything was going to be with the song?
Yeah, I mean, all the songs that we had on the list would have been done in an hour, as far as the guitar, one guitar, bass, drums. That's just sort of the way it was back in the day. You wouldn't attempt to record songs you couldn't play.
Right. Well, I guess like, because when I listen to some of the Ziggens records, I guess kind of later on, there's all these like these bits, these like brilliantly timed comedic bits in between all the songs, and I'm like,
right,
what I mean, like that it definitely has to be tracked like in a different way, but also just like, if the joke doesn't land, like how many takes does it take to get that? So that's why I guess
you never know. Yeah, some of that stuff is done. Typically you would do the music and then you would do the vocals, and then you'd start lining it up, like, and then once it's lined up, especially with the Ziggens, they would hear like a gap between two songs and something would strike them as funny. Again, always cracking. Both bands were, humorous ass bands. I mean, you can ask anybody, Sublime and the Ziggens. It was humor and laughter was a huge part of the deal for both bands the whole time. That was just what we were known for, is about having a good time. So it was. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. A good interview would be Brad. So what happened was, then I'm in Sublime, and Brad Ziggen, the drummer, was working with John Poutney. I think they did some music at Knott's together, Knott's Berry Farm, and John heard him play drums, and was like, I guess somehow he arranged a jam with Bert, who was kind of more stable and wanted to get back to playing music. Really, the thing with the Ziggens is we had like a revolving door of drummers. We could never really get a drummer that understood what we were trying to do. And it frustrated the shit out of Bert to the point where we just packed it up. And so then when they found Brad, and Brad can sing like a bird too. So that was the other thing. I wasn't singing like harmony yet in the Ziggens, although I started in Sublime. So that was it. So then all of a sudden he came by the house. I hadn't seen him in a while, and he was like, I'm just going to do my own thing. I got it where I wanted. I got this little 3-piece now with this kid, Brad from Wisconsin, and he sings great. And that was it. So then the Ziggens was a 3-piece, and they had met this guy, Rob Perez, and that was it. And they were self-contained. He was a great engineer and producer. Little 3-piece band, and they did the whole very next record live, and of all people, Dickie's bedroom, even though he wasn't in the band, they used his house, took over his house. And so all of a sudden they're back, and Sublime's doing better than ever. And I'm in Sublime. So then we started just doing endless shows together but apart. so then I forget what happened, why, but then Rusty Never Sleeps. I ended up producing that. And the third Ziggens record at Dominguez, I was still a student. although barely. And so that was where we kind of came back together. I can't remember. I don't think I played on it though. I had to listen to it, but I don't think so. I think I just liked what they were playing better. And I had become a better producer, a better engineer. It was like could punch in real fast in the middle of a guitar solo, and so you make an okay guitar player sound like a good guitar player if you know what you're doing. And so that was it. So that was a fun record. That was kind of the end of my Dominguez, because I was like a student there, but I wasn't taking any classes, and I was hogging up all the studio time to finish that Ziggens record. I think that might have been the end of it for me there. And then we just went off and just started doing a lot of shows, and then the Ziggens just kept going. Now they had 3 good records, or at least 2, and then they did Checking Out. And by then we had Skunk Records kind of doing good. We had like 30 stores, so they just handled everything and would just bring me like the CDs. And when I went and did my rounds for Sublime, I distributed the Ziggens CDs, and they started doing real good. And then, it was, Brad never got to hear Ignore Amos, but it was almost done when he passed. But then by the time Ignore Amos came out for the Ziggens, Sublime was on MCA, Universal Music Group, and so they were helping Skunk Records. They had put some of their staff at our disposal. So, and that staff just loved the Ziggens. So they were able to really push that record. You'll get it in the big stores, and I felt that, really, that was like a really good time. So we had lost Brad, but now the Ziggens were really taking off, playing gigs all over, and so the story just kind of kept rolling along. It always keeps going. Then by then we had met Slightly Stupid, so it was like. So now Slightly Stupid is the opener for the Ziggens, and then we put the Dubs together, and then I think there's some shows where it's the Long Beach Dubs, Ziggens, and Slightly Stupid, and eventually Stupid gets bigger than everybody, but Ziggens kept going. It was always hard though for the Ziggens, because Bert was it just priority wise, it was his kids and his family. So they have these good records, and they could do little shows, and we do little runs. I'd go with them sometimes. And, but he could never really just like leave home and tour, And so the band never really broke. I think that was really the thing. People kind of, it's a head scratcher to a lot of people, because they're like, man, these records are good, especially the Checking Out, Ignore Amos, and Pomona Lisa. If you take those 3 records, if it was only just that, it's still like a landmark band. So it was tough, and so it was local hero thing. They would get asked to play things, but he could never really just leave home and give it up. His job, and son always had babies. Shit, I had 4 kids, 4 sons, kind of back to back. So so that was a priority, Yeah. He just really wasn't, it was just his priority. He wasn't like a go out and have a blast. He did, but it was not at the expense of his children, like no way. That's not happening. So that was like, I don't know, maybe one little regret that maybe the Ziggens could have been a bigger band or something like that. Or if Brad would have lived, that would have been enough. Yeah. Because I don't know if you remember when like Nirvana brought the Meat Puppets on stage, MTV. I mean, that was beyond landmark in the underground, in the old punk rock. That was beyond class. I mean, that was the biggest thing since the Rolling Stones brought Muddy Waters to England. Yeah. Nobody wanted him there. They didn't know what. They paid for it themselves. They didn't know why. Why bring this old black kid? What are you talking about? He's the fucking guy, bro. Like, we named our band after his song. Nobody cared until they heard him. Until they heard the man. And that's how Muddy Waters came back. And that's how the Meat Puppets came back. I mean, they were doing all right. But, you know, then they got signed to a major. They had a #1 hit, you know, huge boost. So that was, you know, but you know, that was Bert, though. He was just a survivor, man. He had his family. He had his big family, man. He has tons of brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles. So he was, you know, always, you just play his shows and make records and have fun. He didn't really take it too, like, seriously. Like, he never felt like heartbroken or left behind. And not that he showed, you know, let me know about it. And then I think Dickie came back in to make Pomona Lisa. He had been in the live band for a while. Once he was free, I forget, you know, he was just around, and there were so many overdubs on the records, and he's such a great guitar player that they were just like, you know, got to bring him in. And then there were a 4-piece for Pomona Lisa, pretty much upward all the way up to, you know, this last record. So, you know, it was just a fun ride. It was just always an inspiration to watch Bert's songs grow. Watch how he channeled all these different influences and brought things in. And even kind of started like kind of bringing in the influence from No Doubt and Sublime into his music, you know. Little reggae things here and there and stuff. But it was always perfectly natural to us. And just the brotherhood that we had, the two bands from just, you know, just having nothing, basically. Playing so many shows for, like, you know, so few people. You know.
Yeah, well, it one of those things it's hard to keep, you know, it's a different, like, headspace to get in, to, like, play to a room that's not too full and give it your all and keep doing that, knowing that one day something's gonna come from it, whatever that is. You know what I mean? That's a different type of dedication that, like, you only learn from doing it and, like, being inspired by the right reasons, and that is to put your music out there the best you want to do it.
Yeah, I think watching both Brad and Bert, for me, you know, that's always going to be the two faces on Mount Rushmore for performance and songwriting for me. So putting Perro Bravo together, like the lessons, because you have to just really, with Brad, he was intense when they were in, like, somebody's garage just practicing. He just loved the way that his band sounded. You know, he just knew that there's no other band in the world that sounds like. And so that was it. So he had that kind of patience to know it's like only a matter of time till they catch up to it. And I think Bert kind of felt the same way especially once he got Brad Connors. Once Brad Connors was in the Ziggens, Bert really felt like, you know, his songs just never sounded better. You know, he's just one of the greatest drummers that ever walked, one of the greatest harmony singers that ever walked, one of the funniest dudes, you know. Like you said, the banter, those two, you know, on stage was just hilarious. It was so natural. So that's the other thing, you know, if the band really sounds good, you're just doing it just to hear your band, you know, in the room loud, just to hear your amp loud. It's fun. But yeah, I can only go so long. That's the thing. So for Brad and Sublime and myself, it was like, well, let's keep trying to make, you know, songs, better and better songs with the interest in being popular. As in, like, leave it all behind. We didn't have kids, you know. You know, that was Brad's aspiration when I met him. We would watch MTV hoping for, like, fans that stung. We called that our mark. We'd be like, here we go. Turn it up real loud. Noise shit out of everybody. Like, this is who we're taking out. You can't tell me these guys are better than I am. Like, I'm scared. I'm not going to believe that. Used to love the crappy bands because that was our mark. It's a band we know we could take out. You know? And so Brad had that aspiration. Like, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to do what he did. Where's Bert? was just really, he would have took it, but he just wanted to play songs and have a good time and get out of the house a little bit and make friends. This is what he did. So it really all worked out for both of them guys pretty good. I feel like there's a little place for Bird in the forever history. The history of Brad and Sublime is, that's kind of astounding. That's obviously,
Definitely.
Yeah.
As far as like hanging out with both of them and like for your own songwriting, what were some kind of like lessons you kind of gleaned from Bert and from Brad, and how you kind of like, because you mentioned how Brad would be like just out there giving it his all, knowing people are going to catch on to it. Like how, as far as like taking that to your own music, what were some kind of like songwriting lessons?
Well, for Brad, it was about his thing, like, taught me was that he believed, you have to believe in your own character. You have to be a believable character. I mean, when Johnny Cash sings, he's in prison, you fucking hear it, will you believe it? If he was ever in it or not. You know what I mean? When Ian McKay's screaming about tearing down the government, you fucking believe these kids are going to go rip the fence down and do it. Like, it's, it's believe this kid. You know what I mean? And Sue's alternative was fucking about going to rehab. I'm not crazy. You're the one who's crazy. Wow. You kind of think that probably happened to Mike Buell. Whether it did or not, I don't know. But like, a believable character. The Wichita lineman, Glenn Campbell. You believe that he did that. He didn't. So that's his thing, was the believable character. And it's easier said than done. So
yeah, definitely.
But he had that in spades. Like, he was like, it's like you had to know who you are and what your life was, what you really had to offer before you offer it up. And then for Brad, he just had this feeling that his character was going to be something people would be interested in. The whole thing, the whole shot, just the way he was raised by his dad, with a boat life, going out on boats all the time, and surfing, and his dad played guitar and sang, sit around and play guitars, watching the sunset all the time. It's just really like chill life where it's like music isn't like heavy metal, put on spandex and try to get signed. It was a part of his life. And so he was trying to, with Sublime, like he wanted that to come across. And then with Bert, it was like the hard work angle. He was a Brian Wilson disciple, Bert Ziggens. So Brad, Brian Wilson famously told Paul McCartney when they first met, like 62, he said, how do you know which songs to finish? And, Brian Wilson told Paul McCartney, I finished them all. That's why Paul got a lot of shit for his silly songs, Maxwell Silverhammer and Meter Knees, but but if you don't finish them, like, then there's some kind of cutoff from the grand cook sees you didn't finish your plate, figures you're full, kind of thing. So Bert was a finish it, like, no matter what, if you started it. And he wrote more songs than Brad. I think the believable character thing, I don't know how much weight Bert put in it, but it was true in that he was singing his believable character. Like, so both guys' formulas, both each had a little bit of each other's formula in their shit, So I saw that. I saw that Bert was the story line guy, whereas Brad was a little more abstract, and that was okay too. I was coming from rap. Just keep changing the subjects like you're changing the channel, call it channel surfing. And that was okay for Brad, where Bert was like, want to stay in the narrative. So, those are the differences. But yeah, just the lessons learned is endless. I used to just watch how they held their head to hit certain notes and shit like that. Same with Eric Wilson from bass playing, because I played bass my whole life too, and he was just astounding, fucking great bass player. You know, I used to just sit and just watch him play sometimes, and then it's like pick up the bass and like literally just play what he was just playing. And like I never would have thought to do that. That was like my bass guru, and show me shit just by just play it and then set the bass down, and I just go over and just play what he was you guys just playing. It just sounded so cool. The way he approaches, sorry to explain a little bit, but it's technical. But like the way Eric Wilson, he'll do a fill into the next part off a staccato line. Reggae's a lot of the same thing over and over again. Then he'll set up the next part with an interesting turnaround or a fill. And that's some crazy shit. And, you know, this is, Eric listened to everything too. You know, a lot of punk rock, a lot of reggae, but, you know, he knew a couple Maiden tunes. You know, he did. Yeah. So
his bass lines are incredible. Like going through, like I grew up listening to, like when I sent you the email, to like most of the music that you've recorded, produced, or played in some way. And like, his approach is very, very unique in this sense. Like that groove is established, but there's a sense of flair and excite, because like when you're setting up a groove, you want it to be repetitive and like you can lock into it. But he does it in a way where it's like that whole idea of like there's like a tension that's built and draws your attention to it in the good way, and then resolves back. He does that, like so that like. As far as getting technical, please, like don't hold back.
Well, I don't know the technical. I know. Have you ever heard of the record, the LBC Lounge?
Yes.
Gringo Floyd.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that was after Brad was gone. Somebody found it, brought it to our attention. Like, you got to sue these guys. And me and Opie listened to that shit and just wept. Because it was like, damn, like somebody who knew music could hear that the note Eric added when Brad went to that note made it so we're playing like a G7 dominant 9 jazz, but we're not. We're not. Nobody is. But when you listen to it, when you sit at a piano and play it, yes, you are. Oh, yes, you are. Sublime. See? But the way they came about it was they would practice and jam, and Brad would adjust his melodies and Eric would adjust his bass line, so it just sounded good. But always had to have that simplicity of reggae, this backyard simplicity. But then in the hands of somebody who knows music, they're like, well, actually, because you're doing that and he's doing that, and the guitar's doing that, it's like you're actually could look at it as you're playing this whole other chord we're not even playing. But when they play it, it works. You're like, you know, to anybody who's never heard that LBC Lounge, man, drop everything and go listen to that. Plus, it's funny as shit. You know, there were some jokester people. We never got to meet them. That's too bad. But yeah, so you know, there's an exquisiteness there that's something else. And the Ziggens music got more exquisite too once they started working with Rob Perez. As far as the harmonies and the overdubs of guitars, you know, by the time you get to Bert's solo record, you know, this is beautiful, you know, incredible, really.
Yeah. Well, you worked with Bert on that record, right?
No, I think I did a few things. I just came in by the studio one day and brought burritos, and they drafted me in on a few things. I did some vocals and I did like some lead guitars. But no, that was all Rob Perez. Rob and Bert and Brad, very, very kindred spirits as far as, you know, the listening, what they listen to, what they want to hear, how meticulous they are and stuff. So that was, you know, and that's who made this most recent record was me and Rob Perez and Brad Conant. I mean, there was the list of people who played on it is like 25, 30. But as far as like the people who did the most heavy lifting, you know, was myself, Brad Conyers, and Rob Perez, and honorable mention to Chris Jackson and Todd Foreman, who did, you know, went with huge contributions too. But so, you know, that's it. It ended as good as it could end. I'm glad we got the last little bit of surf music out there. It was definitely something nice for us to have, you know, to do. I feel that kind of little bit of him kind of looking down every day, you know, like, not gonna let my surf record die on the vine. You know, can't do it, you know. Like, told him we'd finish it, we gotta finish it. So that's cool. The second volume is coming out on Bert's Memorial. It'll be 1 year, August 17th. So we've lost Bert, so we'll get this interview and we'll have you know, in the next, his whole surf record dream was complete. So that's it. You know, it was a good time, great memories. You know, both guys really gone too young, even though Bert made it longer, still like 60. Geez. Yeah, it's some serious survival guilt there for people like, because he, you know, anyway.
Yeah, man, I got
far better man than me. Yeah.
But so I mean, the to touch upon the record, it is a really incredible, well done record. Like, listening through all the Ziggens like surf stuff, you know, and they're all great tunes throughout their discography. But definitely this last record is like, it's at another level. And like, I think everyone, like, the weight of everyone's like care and love for Bert comes across that when it's delivered. And like, I guess going into it, so Bert had all these like ideas carved out. Like, what did that look like?
He had all his guitar parts done to a click.
Yeah.
He'd done them with his son. I should mention Paul Suzenka had a little studio in his house. And when Bert was starting to get sick, he wanted to hang out with his son and he wanted to do music, so they would nerd out and just get the ultimate surf guitar sounds. And none of the guitar sounds that Bert gave us were touched. They couldn't touch them. They were fucking perfect. Every single one.
Wow.
And there's like 25 different ones in. So Paul, I should have mentioned Paul couldn't have had this thing without Paul Suzenka, Bert's son. So he had them all, you know, he had made a little drum loop just to play to.
Okay.
Drum machine loop. And that was it. So we had pretty much all the rhythm parts, all the melodies. And that was it. And some notes, you know, add this or add that, or maybe something like this here.
Okay. Like, was that...
So we had to kind of generate all the solos, and most of the solos are either me or Rob Perez.
Well, those are ripping, man. Like, when you know, click part, or when guitar tracks are tracked out, I didn't know if it was just like, you know, the melody or the you know, the riff. But okay, so you and Rob were adding the solos and that stuff.
The solos, yeah. Okay. Bert would have the melody line, the part you could sing. Yeah. Bert would have all that, and the rhythm guitar under it. He'd have that, and then it would just be a break. You know, and so that would be either saxophone, guitar, solo, keyboard solo or something. He just had notes.
Did you like have to do any kind of like surf homework to get into this, or were you just like not get into it, but
it's just hard to get it to sound good.
Okay. Yeah.
Those sounds are real hard to achieve.
Yeah.
So you got, for me, just 3 Fender amps, a Jaguar, a Strat, a Telecaster, and 3 different kind of boosters, 3 different kinds of little tape amps, and just nerd out and just the hardest part is just getting it to sound good against what he had done.
Yeah,
because he was gone, and and so it was. I don't know. For me, solos are like easy. I don't know. Getting the sound is the hard part. Once you get the sound, then it's easy to do it. You know?
Yeah. Well, they're definitely.
It's a million takes, you know.
I
It's
understand
fun.
that, man.
Fun way to spend the morning.
Well, it does, like, I couldn't tell listening through, like, it sounded like, I think you did a really incredible job doing that, like, matching what he had and adding your own voice to it. Because, like, listening through,
Thanks, man,
I thought it was all Bert. Like,
right. Right. You know, I mean, you got a really good guitar player at the end. Well, you know, no, well, we'll publish the liner notes with the liner notes are in the record. I'll send you the record and you see who played everything.
that'd be amazing. I've been, like, that, especially that vinyl you guys are putting out looks super sick too
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
yeah, dude, that's wicked.
That's got down to who played what on every song.
Okay, very cool.
You know, the credits aren't. I don't want to say nobody cares anymore, but like, you know, people don't really care anymore. It's not, you know, and it's not, you know, it's whether I played bass or Rob played bass or John Powney played. You know, it doesn't really matter. I mean, for my money, Rob is the best bass player, but but it was funny because Powney had the Ziggens were in trouble, man. Powney was sick. Dickie had surgery. Bird's gone, and so it was like me and Brad, and you know, Paul had already done all the hard work, got it to where we needed it.
Yeah.
And then it was, okay, well, let's just chip away at this. And we just got lucky. Certain people that love Bert to death. In the end, there's Adrian Young from No Doubt played on a song. You know, took me back to '88 when I met him, man. He was younger than, you know, as this kid. He destroyed the drum kit. I was like, this guy's fucking incredible. There he is playing. And we got, you know, Ian Foreman, who is the drummer for the Dubs, and he just subbed for Bud. He played in Sublime, first Warped Tour. So there you go. That's the next generation. You know, and Antoine Arvizu, who owns the studio you may have heard of in Long Beach called The Compound.
Okay, yeah.
And he's a great drummer, and so we did a session with Brad, and he's kind of like, is Brad going to play on all these songs? And I'm like, why do you want to? So he played on a couple. Johnny Cosmic reached out from Stick Figure. He's a lifelong Ziggens fan. And I sent him a track. I you know, and he fucking just killed it. You know, just came back with so many beautiful ideas. Tunnel Vision, got on one. Chuck Treese, that's the video. So it was cool. You know, it was a fun project. And I'm just glad we got it done for the year anniversary.
Yeah, that's a lot to get in. That's a lot of tunage.
Yeah, that was one of the things. He was like, I'm not gonna lie, when I put it on CD, and me and Brad Conyers went to lunch, and we just drove around listening to it on CD, and it was literally just Bert's guitar parts. I just muted the drum machine just to hear just the guitar parts, just what Bert left us, and then we just sort of, with this, you know, I said, you know, Brad just sort of picked 12. And I said, well, you know, the 12 that speak to you, you know, that's a good record. And then so between me and Brad and Rob, I knew we could finish it, just the three of us. So then I just started sending the other 12 out to, like, you know, hey, Adrian, you said you wanted to do it. Like, I didn't really think you would, you know what I mean? So send him a song. You know, hey, you know, these people who said they wanted to do it, say, okay, here's your song. And everybody came through.
But, you know, that's so amazing that everyone was, I don't know, that much love was coming back, you know, and, like, you're able to pull off all of them. Like, That's super, super cool, and I think special that everyone got to contribute and say something and help out Bert in this, you know?
Yeah. But wait till you hear the last song.
Yeah?
So leave it at that. St. Berto. Rob Perez wrote it when he got the news, and he ended up having Paul, Bert's son, sing on it. He sings it mainly, but I sing like a little bit. It's like a tribute to Bert. It's like a vocal song. It's not a surf instrumental, but we had to put it on the record anyway. So you'll hear that on the 17th. But man, you know, incredible. So I thanks for your interest, man. You know, and
Oh, yeah.
so what happened? So you have an interview from Bert? It was like a typed interview.
So, yeah, so what happened was, I still got a couple more questions if you don't mind, but let me, with what happened was, like, I reached out to Bert when Oregon came out, and I was like, man, this,
Okay.
you know, this is amazing record. It's been so long since the Ziggens records come out. I would love to interview you and, you know, help promote the record. I have this podcast, and like, and he was like, yeah, you know, and then we had an interview set up, and then the day before it happened, he got COVID real bad. And then we just kept going back and forth, and like, I'm like, I don't like to, I like to politely remind, I don't want to, you know, pester anybody going through anything. And so by the time I circled back, he was like, man, I would love to, but I can't talk anymore. And I was, I was like, I don't even know how to respond to the, you know what I mean? And then my girlfriend was like, well, see if he'll do a written one. And I was like, you know, and, you know, I didn't want to burden him with it, but he, you know, I sent him, and he said he was into it, and I sent him some questions, and like every like week or so he would send me answers, and like it was very sweet because he was just like, oh man, you really listen to my music, and like these are so thoughtful, and it was just like, you know, like it made me feel good that he really enjoyed it too. So I was like, man, I got to do something with this written interview. And I'm from Cleveland, and there's this guy named Harvey Picar. Are you familiar with that cat?
No.
Okay, Harvey Picar is a comic author, right? He was one of the early DIY, like kind of underground comic guys that was just kind of like doing his own thing, and like I was supposed to interview his widow before she passed, and like so I've been doing all this research, and like, you know, some of the art is more like accessible. I was like, I think before I did music, I was like drawing. It's like, I think I can pull this off. So I started really hunkering down and like taking some lessons and like learning how to make like a graphic novel. And I've been just illustrating the whole interview and reaching out to some people to try to add on to it to make it like a whole thing, you know? So I really appreciate all your insight on this, man, because like there's a lot of cool stuff and more pages I can definitely add to this. So I slowly kind of want to reach out to people that work with Bert to add more to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say maybe start, you know, with Poutney, and yeah, let's start with Poutney, man.
Okay, I reached
because, you know, there's 2 years, 3 years before you know, I met them guys that I don't really know much about, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I found his Facebook. I don't know if he's like, some people are, you know, really responsive to that, and like some people aren't. That's why I always try to do email. I feel like everyone's actually like, you know, if you reach out via email, you're not a bot. Like,
right.
But yeah, I wanted to talk to him and Dickie and Brad just to kind of get like the whole story, and maybe possibly Bud, because I know he did some work with like Bert and on all these side projects. Yeah, man, that would be, dude, Mike, I really appreciate. That would be incredible, because like I was saying to you, like I've never had like a thing where it ended up being someone's last thing, and like I grew up on the Ziggens music and Sublime and your music, and like I want to like put it as much as it mattered to me out there and do it right. So that would be incredible if I can add their voices to this whole project too. And I got a guy in Ohio who's going to publish it, so it's like And he was all like, yeah, cool. And he's like, wait, you're going to do what now? Can I, oh man, Mike, I really appreciate this. Can I ask you some other like kind of questions, your music and Sublime kind of adjacent now, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Sweet. One thing, like, on the Ziggens, like, there's this tune you have called Man with the Bigfoot Name. And, like, that strikes...
that's it, Buddy Knox.
It strikes me as a Ziggens-esque tune.
Well, that's a cover.
Oh, okay.
Well, kind of. It's the chorus is a cover, and then the verse is original. So we have our friend Bobo was on the Animal Planet. He had a show called Finding Bigfoot.
Yeah.
You never saw it?
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I've seen that show.
So Bobo, the big dude Bobo.
Yeah.
He's part of the early Sublime Ziggens. He's part of the crew.
No way.
Yeah, from the day.
That's awesome.
He's one of my best friends in the world. Like I met him in '90. Yeah, so he gets on TV. He's got the show. And then he played me the Buddy Knox song. So Buddy Knox, I don't know if you know Buddy Knox, he was a rock and roller. Mm-hmm. He had a big hit called Party Doll. But he was from North Cal. And he spent all his money and time, once he was like a famous rock star, like he was going to prove Bigfoot's existence. Okay, he was like a Bigfooter.
Yeah.
And so he I don't know the whole story, but there's this unreleased tune that he did, and that's the chorus. So but it's like one of these like talk tunes where each verse is like 2 minutes. And so I was like, well, that chorus is banging, so I'll make it about Bobo for his show. It's supposed to be for the show. And so, yeah, real Ziggens-esque harmonies and guitars, but I changed all the verses to be about Bobo.
Okay, that's even cooler. And I guess the reason
interestingly enough, it is so on Burst Solo record, the song that I tell the story about going down to Mexico to serve.
Yeah,
Bobo was on that trip. He was with me.
Yeah.
So it's all one big family,
I guess the reason I bring that up is I heard in another interview, or I read in an interview, that sometimes you write and make stuff as if you were going to show it to Brad. So I wondered if that was maybe something you were thinking about. Yeah?
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, what's the point at this point if he wouldn't have thought it was good? Yeah. And Bert too. It's just their honest opinion mattered to me, and they'd give it to you, So no, that's what I'm saying. So it's all, everything I've ever made is every guitar solo I've ever done, everything. It's just like, would Brad and Bert, like it? Just this is like your parents. There's just no way around. What are they going to think of this? Like this is still in my mind. It really can't go away. So, that's definitely what it's all about, for me, and I'm just lucky to have that. Keith Richards knew Chuck Berry. Every goddamn riff he ever wrote for the Rolling Stones, he's like, I know I'm going to have to see Chuck. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like,
oh, yeah.
He's like, here I am trying to play what he should be playing. And that's just how everybody's got that sort of like, well, I don't know about everybody, but a lot of people have that sort of thing,
Well, I think it's incredibly inspirational and and special that like we all grow up in our own corner of the world with our own influences, and like they leave their mark on you. And I think a lot of people are afraid to like show the mark that's been left by other people, because a lot of people compare them to it, and then maybe themselves aren't seen through it. But I think it's important, and I think that embrace that, and I think that's a really a very honorable way to do that.
Well, yeah, everybody's different. That's what I'm trying to say is like we grew up with the believable character. See, like, so it's all honesty and humility, and accepting it. That's better. Otherwise, you're just putting on the spandex and the lipstick and going up to fucking Hollywood to pretend you're Motley Crue or girls. We're not. Otherwise, what's the difference? So I understand, these like techno people, they're like, yeah, I'm just hiding behind these techno volume and mass on my head. Well, that's the same thing as Motley Crue. Like it's like, it's just no hiding.
And like one other, like I like listening through like with certain guys, with like Brad and Bert, they have specific visions of music, like on your end, like kind of helping them produce and record and write, like I guess like to help someone see a vision, especially as specific as like maybe like some of the Sublime ones were, because like some of those songs are so tight and they hit at different, same with the Ziggens, they just hit at these different points that bring out that whole thing. And man, like trying to explain that without it existing would be really kind of challenging. So I guess like with working with these guys, like what were some lessons you've learned to like kind of help get out someone else's vision?
You have to listen to the music they listen to. You have to take the time, with Brad and Bert, there was just hours of listening to what they liked. It's really as simple as that. So that when you're in the studio, it's like, that one song where it goes and how the solo sounds kind of hollowed out. It's like, okay, there you go. And yeah, I do know. And then at the same time, you're studying production, so oh, that's a slapback echo, or what it is that's making that sound. Neither Brad or Bert was technical like that.
Yeah.
So that's, to answer the question, it was like, it was all through example. So I had to like get into all the music. But see, that was my thing. I was ready to like move on. So I spent a full 2 or 3 years like having no musical opinion at all. Like it was, I was happier listening to whatever tape Opie wanted to listen to. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, just to study it, like to listen to it. Like Muda Baruka. Like, what the fuck is Muda Baruka? It's like, you never heard Muda Baruka. So that keeping that openness. So both of those guys, and that's the key. You have to know your skill set in the studio, how to bring sounds out. You have to listen to enough of the material to understand the example given.
I think that's really well said, because there's a lot like with like kind of a creative type of, it's hard to describe a studio technique or other than like a kind of feeling or something like that. And like, because some of the guys we work with, I play in a band out here in Cleveland called C Level, letter C dash. And like,